This happened back in the summer of 2018. I had never been a fan of outdoor trips like this. The bugs, the dirt, the way the ground always felt hard no matter how thick the sleeping pad was, none of it appealed to me. But my father was the complete opposite. He lived for these adventures in nature, and every year during school break, he would organize a trip with his old buddies. By the time I reached high school, I had tagged along too many times to count. That summer, I finally convinced him to let me bring along my best friend, Ryan. To my surprise, he agreed easily. Ryan was the kind of guy who actually enjoyed the outdoors. He'd been in Scouts and knew how to handle tents and fires without any hassle. I figured having him there would make the whole thing less miserable. He was excited too, mostly because it was a chance to escape his strict parents for a few days. We packed our bags and headed out early one morning, driving several hours to what was supposed to be a quiet, remote spot in the hills. But things went wrong right from the start. One of my dad's friends had messed up the booking. Instead of a peaceful forest area, we ended up at this overly developed family campground. It had paved paths, modern restrooms with showers, and even a small playground for kids. It felt more like a fancy resort than real camping. My dad and his friends were clearly annoyed, complaining that this wasn't the rugged experience they wanted. Ryan kept joking about it too, teasing me that my family didn't know what true wilderness looked like. It started to get on my nerves, but I told him to ease up, and he did. The biggest surprise came later that afternoon. Right next to the campground was a small amusement park, the kind with carnival games, a Ferris wheel, and a couple of modest roller coasters. It was bizarre seeing the two worlds side by side. Everyone grumbled, but there was no point turning back after such a long drive. We made the best of it. The adults set up camp while Ryan and I handled our tent. He was impressively efficient, tying everything perfectly. Even my dad gave him an approving nod, which secretly annoyed me a bit. Once dinner was over and things quieted down, Ryan and I slipped away. We had brought a small pipe and some stuff to relax. We were in that rebellious phase where sneaking around felt exciting. We found a hidden spot in the nearby trees, smoked a little, and laughed about school and our friends. The adults wouldn't notice. We planned to avoid them for the rest of the night. Back at the tent, we talked for hours, but couldn't sleep. The energy was still high. Ryan got that mischievous look in his eyes and suggested we explore the amusement park after dark. The idea of climbing one of the roller coasters sounded thrilling. We had always loved sneaking into places we shouldn't. After midnight, when the whole campground was asleep, we grabbed our flashlights and headed toward the fence separating the sites. Climbing over was easier than expected. The park was dark and quiet, but security guards patrolled on golf carts every so often. We moved like shadows, ducking behind buildings and sprinting across open areas when the coast was clear. The thrill mixed with real fear. Getting caught would mean serious trouble. We reached the base of the biggest roller coaster and spotted the maintenance stairs. The metal rungs clanged softly under our shoes as we climbed higher and higher. No railings in some parts made it scary, but the view from the top was incredible. We could see the entire park and the distant lights of the campground. We snapped one quick photo, careful not to use the flash too much, then decided it was time to head back before our luck ran out. The way down and back through the park felt faster. We were almost at the fence when a guard's cart approached. We quickly hid behind a snack shack and waited. That's when I noticed movement in the darkness between two buildings about 30 feet away. At first, I thought it was just shadows from the cart's lights. Then Ryan tapped my arm and pointed. Someone else was crouching there too, clearly hiding from the guards, just like us. It wasn't a kid. The figure looked like an adult man. He seemed to be staring straight at us. My heart pounded. We stayed frozen as the guard passed. Then the man suddenly darted across a lit patch. In that brief moment under the street lamp, I saw him clearly. Tattered, dirty clothes, awkward movements like he was hurt, and dark smears across his face and shirt that looked a lot like blood. Ryan saw it too. We exchanged a terrified glance, but couldn't speak or move yet. The man disappeared into the shadows again. As soon as the guard was gone, we bolted for the fence, climbed over, and ran back to our tent without a word. No laughing this time. We just lay in our sleeping bags whispering theories. Maybe a homeless guy? Some drunk trespasser? Nothing made sense, but exhaustion finally took over. The next morning started normally. We ate breakfast and prepared for a fishing trip. Around 10 a.m., a camp staff member came by with an urgent announcement for everyone. A man had been stabbed to death the previous night at a nearby lake, just a few miles away. The killer was still on the loose, described as a disheveled man in his 30s, possibly injured and covered in blood. They advised all campers to pack up and leave immediately for safety. Ryan and I looked at each other. It matched exactly what we'd seen. We never told my dad or the authorities. At that age, we were more scared of getting in trouble for sneaking out than anything else. I still regret that decision. Our silence might have let a dangerous person escape. Even today, Ryan and I rarely talk about it, though we're still close friends. The thought that we were so close to a murderer that night still gives me chills. What if he had spotted us more clearly or decided to come closer? This happened in the fall of 2017, during that strange time when creepy clown sightings were everywhere in the news. People were sharing videos and stories online about clowns lurking in woods or near schools, trying to scare kids or worse. Most of it was probably fake or just pranks, but a few incidents felt genuinely dangerous. What happened to me still sticks with me as one of the real ones. I was 17, a junior in high school, living in a busy suburban area outside a major city. School had just let out for the day, and I said goodbye to my friends before hopping on the usual train heading toward my neighborhood. The car was surprisingly empty for that time of afternoon, but I didn't think much of it. I had my headphones on, blasting some popular rap tracks, and I was flipping through study notes on my phone for a chemistry test the next day. I was completely in my own world, not paying attention to anyone around me. The train pulled into my stop, and I stood up automatically, still staring at my screen. As the doors opened, something blocked my way. I looked up and froze. Standing right in the doorway was a clown, full costume and everything. Baggy, colorful pants with polka dots, a bright yellow shirt with red suspenders, oversized red shoes, and heavy white face paint with a big red nose and exaggerated blue eyebrows. No wig though, which somehow made it even creepier. He wasn't moving to get on the train. He was just standing there, staring straight at me, blocking my exit. My heart started pounding. For a second, I thought it might be some stupid prank related to all the viral clown stuff. But something about his posture felt off, too still, too deliberate. The doors were about to close in a few seconds, so I tried to squeeze past him quickly. The moment I brushed against him, he leaned down fast, getting right in my face like he wanted to look me in the eyes. I panicked and shoved harder, bolting out onto the platform. That's when he lunged. He tried to grab me, but I dodged and started running up the stairs toward the street. I glanced back and saw him chasing after me with this weird, jerky run, like his arms and legs weren't moving naturally. In his hand, I caught a glint of metal, a large kitchen knife. He wasn't playing around. There was almost no one else on the platform that afternoon, so it felt like I was completely alone with this nightmare chasing me. I sprinted up the stairs, 2 at a time, my backpack bouncing wildly. My headphones had fallen out somewhere, but I didn't care. All I could hear was my own breathing and the slap of those big clown shoes behind me. I burst out onto the busy street, weaving between pedestrians who looked confused but didn't really react fast enough to help. The clown didn't follow me all the way out into the daylight crowd. He stopped at the top of the station stairs, watching me for a moment before disappearing back down. I kept running for another block before I finally stopped and called the police from my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. Officers arrived quickly, and I told them everything. They searched the station, but the clown was already gone. They took my statement seriously because of the knife and the timing with all the other clown reports that year. For the next few weeks, I was terrified every time I had to take the train or walk home alone. I kept imagining he knew where I lived and might show up at night. Thankfully, nothing else happened. No more sightings, no strange notes or followers. It faded into just another bizarre memory from that weird clown panic season. But even now, years later, if I see anyone in a clown costume, even at a party or circus, my stomach drops for a second. That close encounter taught me how fast a normal afternoon can turn into pure terror. The third incident took place during the winter of 2019 in a quiet coastal town where I was working a seasonal job at a local community pool. The place stayed open year-round for training and special events, but in the off-season, it was mostly empty except for a few regulars and maintenance staff. I had taken the lifeguard position because it paid decently and gave me plenty of free time to study for college exams in the evenings. Little did I know this easy gig would turn into one of the most disturbing experiences of my life. The facility had an indoor section with a large lap pool and a smaller outdoor area that was closed during colder months. Management was strict about security. Cameras everywhere, locked gates after hours, and a policy that no one could be alone on the premises without a buddy system. But like many places, rules got bent when things were slow. My supervisor, an older guy named Mr. Harlan, often left early and trusted me to lock up since I lived nearby. One Thursday night around 8 p.m., I was finishing my shift. Only a handful of swimmers had shown up that day, mostly older folks doing laps for exercise. By closing time, the building was silent except for the hum of the filtration system and the occasional drip from the diving boards. I did my usual walkthrough, checking locker rooms and making sure all lights were off in the changing areas. That's when I noticed something odd near the deep end. A black duffel bag sat on one of the benches, half hidden under a towel. It didn't belong to any of the regulars I recognized. I called out a few times, but got no answer. Thinking someone might have forgotten it, I picked it up to take it to the Lost and Found. It was heavier than expected. Curiosity got the better of me. I unzipped it just enough to peek inside. What I saw made my stomach drop. Stacks of cash wrapped in plastic, several small plastic bags containing white powder, and a couple of handguns with silencers attached. I froze. This wasn't some kid's gym bag. My mind raced through possibilities: drug deal gone wrong, money laundering, or worse. The pool had been used for private parties lately by some wealthy out-of-towners. I quickly zipped it back up and placed it exactly where I found it. The smart thing would have been to call the police immediately, but fear made me hesitate. What if the owners came back while I was on the phone? What if they were watching the building? I finished locking the main doors and headed to the staff room to grab my things, trying to act normal. That's when I heard footsteps echoing from the pool area. Heavy, deliberate steps on the wet tile. I killed the lights in the hallway and peeked around the corner. Two men in dark clothing were moving toward the bench where the bag was. One was tall and muscular, the other shorter with a limp. They spoke in low voices, but I couldn't make out the words. They grabbed the bag and started checking around, as if looking for signs that someone had disturbed it. Panic set in. My phone was in my locker across the room, and the only exit was through the main lobby, which they'd have a clear view of. I backed away slowly toward the emergency exit at the far end of the building, the one that led to the outdoor pool deck. The alarm would sound if I pushed it, but that might be my only chance. Just as I reached for the door, the taller man called out, "Hey, who's there?" I slammed through the emergency door. The alarm blared instantly, echoing across the empty parking lot. I ran barefoot across the cold concrete toward the fence, not even stopping to put on my shoes. Behind me, I heard shouts and the sound of someone chasing. A bullet whizzed past my head. They weren't playing games. I dove behind a storage shed and tried to catch my breath. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might explode. The shorter man with the limp appeared near the fence, scanning the area with a flashlight. He was close enough that I could see the scar running down his cheek. "Come out, kid. We just want to talk," he said in a calm but threatening voice. I stayed silent, pressing myself against the cold metal wall. After what felt like forever, they gave up and hurried back to a black SUV parked on the side street. They sped off into the night. I waited another 10 minutes before sneaking back inside to grab my phone and call the police. When officers arrived, they searched the entire facility and took my statement. The bag was gone, of course. Turns out the pool had been under surveillance for weeks as part of a larger money laundering operation tied to a criminal syndicate in the city. The owners of the private parties were using the facility to exchange cash and drugs discreetly. For the next month, I stayed with relatives out of town and had police check my apartment regularly. I quit the job the same week and never went back to that pool. The authorities assured me the men probably didn't get a good look at my face, but the paranoia lingered for years. Every time I heard a car slow down near me or saw someone watching too long, my mind went back to that night. Even now, I avoid working late shifts alone and double-check every door before bed. That close call taught me that sometimes the most ordinary jobs can hide the darkest secrets. If I'd opened that bag a minute later or made a sound earlier, things could have ended very differently. This final terrifying experience occurred in the spring of 2020, right when the world was starting to shut down because of the pandemic. I was 21 and living alone in a small apartment complex on the edge of a mid-sized town. Most of my friends had gone back to their families, and the streets were eerily quiet. I worked night shifts at a local warehouse that stayed open for essential deliveries, so my days were spent sleeping and my nights were spent driving home through empty roads at 3 or 4 in the morning. One particular Tuesday, I finished my shift early, around 2:30 a.m. The fog was thick that night, making everything look blurry under the streetlights. I parked my old sedan in my usual spot near the back of the building, grabbed my bag, and headed toward my ground floor unit. The complex had motion sensor lights, but half of them were broken, leaving long stretches of darkness between buildings. I was used to it by then. As I approached my door, I noticed a faint glow coming from inside my apartment. I had definitely turned all the lights off before leaving. I was paranoid about electricity bills. My first thought was that maybe I had left the bathroom light on by mistake. I unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. The living room was dark, but a soft light was leaking from under my bedroom door. My heart picked up speed. I lived alone. No one had a spare key except the landlord, and he never came by without texting first. I grabbed a heavy flashlight from the kitchen counter, the kind that could double as a weapon, and slowly pushed the bedroom door open. What I saw made my blood run cold. My room had been searched, drawers were pulled out, clothes scattered on the floor, and my laptop was open on the desk, even though I had shut it down. The screen was on, showing my email inbox. Someone had been sitting there going through my personal messages. On the bed lay a small black notebook that wasn't mine. Inside were handwritten notes with my daily schedule, the times I left for work, when I usually returned, and even sketches of the apartment layout. I backed out of the room, hands shaking. That's when I heard the soft click of the front door closing behind me. Someone had been hiding in the apartment the whole time and just slipped out. I ran to the window and saw a hooded figure hurrying across the parking lot toward a white van parked under a broken streetlight. The person looked back once, and even from that distance, I could feel their eyes on me. I called the police immediately. They arrived within 15 minutes and searched the entire apartment. They found fingerprints on the windowsill and confirmed the notebook was full of detailed stalking notes. The intruder had been watching me for at least 2 weeks. One page even had the license plate of my car and the exact model of my phone. The officer said it looked like a professional job, possibly someone planning a robbery or worse. They took the notebook as evidence and promised to increase patrols around the complex. For the next few days, I stayed with a cousin across town. I installed new locks, bought a security camera, and started sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed. The worst part came 3 nights later. Around 1 a.m., my new camera app sent an alert. Someone was standing right outside my apartment door, wearing the same hoodie. The camera caught them trying the handle gently, then disappearing into the shadows when they realized it was locked. I didn't sleep that night. The police reviewed the footage, but the person's face was never visible. They warned me that stalkers like this often escalate when they feel rejected. I started varying my routine, changing shifts at work, taking different routes home, even wearing different clothes. The white vans stopped appearing in the neighborhood, but the feeling of being watched never fully went away. A month later, while the town was still under partial lockdown, I received an anonymous letter in my mailbox. Inside was a single photo of me sleeping in my bed, taken from inside my room. On the back was written in neat capital letters, "I'll be back when you least expect it." No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing the police could use. That photo proved the intruder had been inside while I was actually home and asleep. I moved out 2 weeks after that, sold most of my furniture, changed my number, and transferred to a warehouse in another state. Even now, years later, I still check under my bed and behind curtains every single night. I never found out who it was or why they chose me. Maybe a random target, maybe someone who knew me from the warehouse. The not knowing is what still haunts me the most. That experience completely changed how I live. I trust almost no one with my routines. Every unexplained sound at night brings me back to that foggy morning when I realized a stranger had been inside my home, breathing the same air, touching my things, and watching me sleep. Some monsters don't need costumes or knives. They just need patience and a dark enough night. This last story happened during the unusually hot summer of 2022 in a small mountain town where I had moved for a temporary forestry job. The work was tough but peaceful, marking trails, clearing fallen trees, and staying in a basic cabin provided by the company. I was 24, freshly out of college, and wanted some time away from city noise and people. The cabin was deep in the woods, about 15 minutes drive from the nearest store, with only a couple of other workers living in similar cabins half a mile away. At first, the isolation felt like a dream, but dreams can quickly turn into nightmares. One evening, after a long day on the trails, I came back exhausted. I cooked a simple meal, took a cold shower, and sat on the small porch watching the sun disappear behind the pine trees. Around 10 p.m., I locked the doors, turned off the generator, and went to bed. The forest was alive with the usual night sounds: crickets, distant owls, and the occasional rustle of animals. I fell asleep quickly. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a strange scratching noise outside the bedroom window. It sounded like nails dragging slowly across the wooden siding. I lay still, listening. The sound stopped, then started again closer to the glass. My heart began to race. I told myself it was probably a raccoon or a deer, but something felt wrong. I grabbed my flashlight and phone, quietly got out of bed, and crept to the window. I didn't turn on the light yet. Peeking through a gap in the curtain, I saw nothing but darkness and trees. Then the scratching moved to the front door. This time it was louder, more deliberate. I heard heavy breathing, human breathing. Someone was standing right outside my cabin. I dialed the emergency number, but there was no signal. The mountains often blocked reception at night. I stayed frozen as the person tried the door handle slowly, testing if it was locked. Thank God I had bolted it. The footsteps circled the cabin. I moved from room to room, keeping low, watching shadows. At the back window, finally, I caught a glimpse under the moonlight. A tall figure wearing dark clothes and a hood, carrying what looked like a long hunting knife. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. He stood there, staring at the window for almost a minute, as if he knew I was inside watching him. I backed into the kitchen and grabbed the only real weapon I had, a heavy axe used for chopping firewood. My hands were sweating. The intruder started kicking the front door hard. Each kick echoed through the small cabin. Wood began to splinter. I knew the door wouldn't hold much longer. I quietly opened the back window, climbed out, and dropped into the bushes. The cold night air hit me as I ran barefoot through the trees toward the main trail. Behind me, I heard the door finally break open with a loud crash. The man shouted something angry and incoherent. He had realized I escaped. I kept running, branches whipping my face, rocks cutting my feet. I knew the trails well enough to head toward the other cabins, but it was pitch black. My flashlight was still inside. I could hear him crashing through the woods behind me, much faster than I expected. After what felt like forever, I reached the dirt road. My lungs were burning. In the distance, I saw headlights. One of the other forest workers was driving back late from town. I ran into the middle of the road, waving my arms like crazy. The truck stopped. It was my coworker, Mark. I jumped in and yelled at him to drive. In the rearview mirror, I saw the hooded man step out onto the road, knife still in hand, watching us speed away. We drove straight to the town sheriff's office. By the time police reached my cabin, the intruder was gone, but he had left clear signs. Bloodied handprints on the walls, he had cut himself breaking in, my laptop stolen, and a handwritten note on my bed that read, "You were supposed to be alone forever." The police later found out he was a fugitive who had been living rough in the mountains for months, targeting isolated cabins. He had been watching me for days, learning my routine. I never went back to that cabin. The company moved me to a different site, closer to town, with better security. Even after the man was eventually caught 2 months later during another break-in, I couldn't shake the fear. For almost a year, I slept with every light on and checked windows obsessively. The sound of scratching or footsteps at night still makes me freeze. Looking back at all these experiences, the bloodied man at the amusement park, the clown with the knife, the criminals at the pool, the apartment stalker, and this mountain intruder, I realize how thin the line is between normal life and pure terror. One wrong turn, one bad decision, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time can change everything. I still love traveling and exploring, but now I'm far more careful. I trust my instincts more than ever. If you ever feel like something is off, a strange noise, a person watching too long, or a gut feeling that won't go away, listen to it. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones with monsters or ghosts. They're the ones with real people who choose to do evil when they think no one is watching.